Why did I spend the afternoon cleaning leather daddy butt gerbil guts off of every piece of gear I own? Oh, because that idiot Jungle had to pass out last night outside a drive-thru liquor store with his vehicle's parking brake off, if you can call a maroon El Camino with a rusted-out bed and one half of a sexy lady mud flap a vehicle, where it rolled into a church playground, only to be discovered the next morning with Jungle passed out in the passenger seat, pantsless, up to his farmer's tan, and empty beer cans, microwave burrito wrappers, and Spanish-language porno mags. And then, to get himself out of trouble, he hijacks a bunch of senior citizen prostitutes and puts them to work in a fake charity car wash at a children's church carnival. Dude, just send me back to Iraq already. I'd way rather slug it out with ISIS than ever see an 80-year-old woman's dilapidated butthole hanging out the back of her G-string while she soaps herself up to ZZ Top's legs ever again. So then Jungle cons the AFT crew into coming down and helping him out, and then almost gets himself arrested in an undercover vice sting. Apparently Jungle sought refuge in a nearby carnival funhouse, in which he spent an inordinate amount of time looking at his junk, much to the dismay of other occupants, in a set of funhouse mirrors, which miraculously helped him give the cops the slip. Only to be confronted shortly thereafter by a very pissed off, if not also slightly asthmatic pimp named Taranda's Sugar Dick, who then proceeded to kidnap a bunch of nuns who were working at a nearby lemonade stand. Of course, being the noble ass-beating motherfuckers that we are, the AFT team took off in hot pursuit, our tank team making short work of that Pimp's poorly armored yet highly tacky STD on wheels, which Jungle probably wishes we would have confiscated instead. Then our Marine took on an army of bodyguard/sex slave seniors dressed up in S&M leather daddy gear, which is just as troubling and disgusting to see in real life as it sounds here. After knocking them all out, I thought it was mission accomplished and we were all going to be able to go home and call it a day. But boy, was I wrong. Each one of these 24 oiled up weirdo fucks had turned their rectums into their own personal clown cars for what seemed like hundreds of hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, mice, and in one case, what I can only assume was a small hedgehog or echidna, along with other rodents. And when they all got knocked out by Marines' muff chucks, their unconscious and relaxed buttholes released the floodgates, as it were, to a deluge of these smelly, bowel-dwelling creatures, who also happen to be dressed like S&M bondage leather daddies and assless pants. Needless to say, nobody wanted any part to do with this literal walking shit show. So my only recourse was to find Stanley, my disgruntled pet honey badger, to deal with these little turd-covered fuckers. And that wasn't very hard to do, because Stanley loves fairs, carnivals, circuses, and just about any amusement park type event, because although he mainly subsides in a steady diet of coffee grounds, cigarette butts, and hatred, Stanley goes absolutely bonkers for cotton candy. And that's where I found him not far away, wedged down inside a cart that makes his stuff, eating himself into oblivion. And probably setting himself up for a pretty good case of honey badger diabetes down the road as well. Now, Stanley's an animal, and he's a lot more crazy than he is smart or bright, but he's also not fucking retarded, and he sure as shit knew that he didn't want any part of taking on dozens of feces-covered varmints with his own bare hands. Luckily, he's a small arms and experimental weapons specialist certified by NATO to be proficient in every type of handheld or operated killing device known and unknown in the free world, including flamethrowers. And this was fortunate because Stanley had just received one as a present for his birthday last week, and we had just taken it to the armory this morning to have it filled. Stanley didn't waste a second. He ran back to my minivan, pulled it out, strapped it on, and fired it up. And before you could say, well, this probably isn't a good idea, Stanley was torching scores upon scores of leather-clad poop parachutists and turning them into butt toast for as far as the eye could see, which would have been awesome. Except for the fact that once superheated, the combination of head-to-toe leather mixed with whatever oils and or polymers they were coated in reacted to form a harder than Kevlar bendable material that was not only heat resistant but also bulletproof. At least more bulletproof than Taranda's Sugar Dick's piece of shit Chrysler. And that's when it seemed like this could actually be the end of Stanley, not to mention the rest of the AFT team. However, like I said, Stanley may not be smart, he fucking sucks at Jeopardy, but he is clever. And as you know, after a set of experiments conducted on him by the Nazis back in the 1940s, Stanley's feces packed the same wallop as their equal weight in C4 plastic explosive. But what you don't know is that when Stanley eats cotton candy in high quantities, it gives him diarrhea. Slushy, pink, massive diarrhea. That's combustible and has the same, if not higher, octane rating as jet fuel. And just about this time, Stanley felt a good wave of it coming on. As Jungle mentioned at the beginning of this story, there was a nearby Little League field that some nincompoop, i.e. Jungle, had done donuts on and ruined the night before. And now there was a groundskeeping crew that had come to replace it, packing down the dirt below with a steamroller right next to where this battle was taking place. So Stanley very gingerly waddled his way over to the steamroller, uncapped the gas tank, and then filled it with the contents of his roiling innards. Then he fired up the ignition of his newly commandeered supercharged steamroller and proceeded to run over every single Kevlar-coated bewhiskered poo golem in sight at 70 miles an hour. They were splattering left and right, guts shooting out for yards and yards in every direction. It was fucking awesome. Well, it would have been fucking awesome if it weren't for the fact that me and the rest of the AFT team hadn't been so close that by the time Stanley was done, everyone and everything within half a click had been covered in hard-baked, greasy, grimy butt gopher guts. That part sucked. But we did get the kidnapped nuns back safe and sound, and everyone came home in one piece. So it was a successful, if not sweet-smelling mission. Also, Jungle talked two of the granny hookers into a three-way on the ride back to the senior center, and he swears to God that he's gonna get the Gravedigger Monster Truck logo tattooed on the side of his junk first thing in the morning. Problem solved, problem staying solved. Rangers lead the way.